Hello and welcome to another episode of Wicked Parley. I'm your host, Justin, and my fellow lovely co-host, Rose. Yes, tonight we're going to be discussing aliens, the mystery of aliens, and the potential, a thought idea-ishness of, are aliens here for a reason? If so, what that reason might be. Yeah, let's start off with the idea. Okay, we've talked about aliens before. This is not an unfamiliar subject, like when it comes to the show. And so, I'm curious, Rose. We've talked about this before. What is your take right now on aliens? Do you think that aliens are real? Do you think aliens have come to Earth? Do you think that these accounts that we've, kind of reported on, and other people have obviously reported on in the past, are legitimate, figment of someone's imagination, or just downright a story, a tall tale? What do you think?
I think there's just too large of a universe for there to not be aliens.
Okay, I agree with you. That's kind of my thought.
Whether they or not they've come to Earth, with everything we've researched so far, it's like that's a plausibility, or we're either having a mass hallucination here, which is a little difficult.
Okay.
A whole global mass hallucination is a little more difficult to believe than just aliens have existed Earth, to be honest. Well, not a complete global mass hallucination, because you do got those skeptics who are just
So I'm part of the hallucination. I can
English,
speak
motherfucker,
English.
do you speak it?
As stories and stuff, there's something that has to be truthful, because it's like these stories don't just, they come from somewhere, even if maybe the original truth was just completely telephoned out of it.
Oh dear Lord. Okay, all right. Hi, host.
Hello.
Welcome to the show of spooky alien discussion. Hopefully you have...
As long as the alien's not the second one.
I mean, I'm okay with that one, actually.
The top row
I
second.
I think the one that I'll be worried about...
I do not want to die.
I think what I'd be worried about is the little, Martian-looking fucking thing, Third row, third down. That one? Yeah, that one.
This one?
Yeah, that one creeps the fuck out of me, particularly the dog.
Doggy.
The alien dog is wrong.
At least this one you know to run away from.
Yeah, well, I mean, really? You'd run away from that?
I don't know.
I'd kill that. Welcome to Earth.
You have the pills to kill it, yeah.
All right. So let me start off with this particular idea that I kind of want to posit, and this is a popular idea shared among a lot of people who have looked into UFOs and really just the lore, as it were,
Okay.
or mythos at this point. I wouldn't say it's anything's factual, so I'm gonna use those terms. If you find that offensive, well, sorry. Until someone plops down and goes, "Take me to your leader." I mean, I'm not really gonna buy all that. I mean, it doesn't not to that extreme, but you know what I mean. There's not a lot of credible 100%. Even though I've seen something really weird, and I honestly can't explain. That alone for me isn't enough to 100% say that they're visiting. You know what I mean? In the sense that they are here in person. So, as I'm sure most people are aware, UFO accounts go back centuries. But they're sporadic. They're not all the time. And I think some people chalk that up to the fact that people just didn't record or report, and there were fewer people, and a variety of things. All of which could be true, maybe it's not, maybe it is, whatever. But
Who
there
be
does,
tricking us at this point?
yeah, but there does seem to be something peculiar happening around the events of World War II. You know, you have in 1941, 42, there were accounts of the Foo Fighters.
Yep.
We after we dropped the bombs in Hiroshima and Nagasaki. The Fat Man and Little Boy.
Yeah.
We started to see what a lot of people say is a huge spike in appearances. Of people seeing UFOs, people telling stories, things along those lines. And there's a lot of weird, hard to prove shit that's popped up. There's a lot of bullshit. There's a lot of things that that are totally just like clearly fake. And then there's some stuff that you really can't explain. I'm kind of leaning under the opinion that there's a reasonable chance UFOs, real, alien created vehicles have traversed and have come to the Earth. I believe that there's enough reasonable evidence to suggest that it's worth exploring that particular idea. That it's not just malarkey, some people randomly seeing some weird shit and being like, "Oh, that's it." I mean, I think there's enough weird things that have happened. In 1952, there were UFOs that were seen over the Capitol building. Those particular events happened for multiple weekends. It was so bad that jets were actually scrambled, and they would go to try and intercept the craft, the orbs, as they were looked at, or flying saucers, depending on who you ask, would move, would go away, and then the jets would come back, and then they would be in the same spot, and then this would repeat itself multiple times. Some reported orange balls. Some people said that they were flying discs. It was it's a little bit difficult to really nail down each of the reports.
Heck, one of them even mentions a meteor.
Yeah, even one of them said it might have been a meteor. So, yeah, but clearly there was something over the skies of the Capitol in 1952 in July. So, there seems to be a large number of incidents of UFOs going to places that they shouldn't. Places that are where nuclear weapons are stored. Or you see people going to places where nuclear reactors are in operation. And it makes me, pose the question to you guys. Do you think that there's something about a nuclear reaction that is dangerous or interesting specifically to life forms outside of our world? Some people have suggested that a nuclear reaction is a technological signature that that tells the universe that you're ready for contact. Kind of similarly in the Star Trek universe of the warp drive, being like, hey, you're ready to be part of the galactic community now. And I wonder if there's not something like that going on. And the reason why I think this is because many of the people whom have interacted with objects have claimed to have psychic communications. Now, I don't believe in psychic communication at all. Okay? I think psychic communication is probably a bunch of bullshit. All right?
It's a bunch of wee-woo.
Yeah. I think it's people who probably are a little too involved. But I think that it's worth at least opening the door to everything, that even if it's a little crazy, to consider it. I personally I wouldn't consider it necessarily as an individual unless there was a lot of really strong evidence. But I do think that to some extent, that there is an opportunity for that to exist on the grounds that we don't necessarily know everything that happens.
Mhm.
And there's certain aspects of interactions with people that you just kind of like have intuition and feelings about that often end up being true. We don't understand how that works. So maybe there's other evolutionary things that can happen with other species, especially given enough time, where maybe something like that can happen.
Mm.
But yeah,
Okay.
I see Host's thing.
Yeah.
Nukes are aliens, fireworks, and they can't expecting a show.
Yep. Yep. Fair enough.
You know,
Forgive me.
the weird part about this, right, is that like almost every account of aliens going near, nuclear weapons, it seems like many of them are deactivating like nuclear weapons. They're not like they're not just letting them like be used. So it really does beg the question of why. So I mean, like, I'd like to know some of your speculations, Rose, when it comes to some of this stuff, because I mean, I'm raising a lot of questions here, a lot of comments, and also host and anyone else who wants to who's watching this in the future, feel free to throw in some suggestions or comments of your own in the chat, and if you're in here live, and if you're not in here live, then throw it in the comment section below. I'm happy to read them. I'm interested, in
Yeah.
hearing about what you guys think about this.
Mhm. Hmm. What do I think about all this besides Hubei? Because it's like it is a little coincidental that they're by so many of these like sites and locations and whatnot.
Mm-hmm.
It's just like for one, it's like could them testing things be the reason for why we see these like UFOs, or they're just like made weirdly, but then that doesn't explain why they're getting remotely shut off and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, who would do that? And then it's like when you think about it, it's like, yeah, sometimes those things are a threat. It's kind of what is it? The closest comparison I can think of is what was it? That situation in the Avengers movie where what was it? What was it? Nick Fury was arguing about their use of what was it? The Tesseract, and then Thor was just like, you let the other realms know that you were ready for intergalactic,
For
confrontation.
for a new level of war.
Yeah, so it's just like, we made a thing, not a nice thing, quite a dangerous thing. So it's like, that might be the real life equivalent. Who knows? I would like for it to not be. Because it's like it was pretty much before then we could have, for anybody who's capable of intergalactic travel, we would be, like the backwater world.
Well, how do you know we're backwater? Like that's the thing that I've always wondered about too. Like when it comes to this stuff, right? Like because I've heard that
Mhm.
before. Like I've heard that like Earth is like this backwater planet, little tiny rock with a little bit of water on it,
Mhm.
and we're in the middle of nowhere. Well, how do we not know that maybe like the region of space in the galaxy of where life is common is
Mhm.
in a ring that we happen to be just in that Goldilocks zone. Just like how there's a Goldilocks zone around the sun and where
Mhm.
life like ours can thrive. Maybe
Mhm.
there's a galactic habitable zone like that. And who's to say that like we're in the backwaters? Maybe we're in a center lane of
No,
intergalactic
I
travel.
say backwater as in like we're not a threat. Because it's like if they're capable of intergalactic travel
Mhm.
and we're not.
Well, okay. Let me put it this way, right?
Mm.
Um, if you were allergic to bees and you were
Okay.
to go and hit a beehive, they're a threat to you. And here's the other thing too, right? What happens? Let's say like aliens exist. Let's throw this out here, right? And let's say like hypothetically they make their first invention, their first big invention, right? Like so, our
Mhm.
first invention was a steam engine. Okay.
Yeah.
What happens if their first invention was anti-grav tech?
Mm.
There's a whole bunch of other tech they don't know about, they don't understand how it works or whatever, right?
Yeah.
And the first thing that they learn is how to control gravity. Well, that's a pretty powerful thing, okay? but there's a lot of other things that are also pretty darn important too, and maybe we've cracked things that they haven't cracked,
Mhm.
and so like they're coming here to like get information and explore what we've figured out so far. Like I definitely understand why. I mean, it's a lot easier of an argument, I think, to suggest that aliens are these all powerful advanced entities that are able to traverse, the universe, and because they can traverse the universe, they must have all this knowledge. But I think back to like bows and arrows, the invention of the firearm, the way in which certain things have been created. More often than not, technological advancement happened because something became necessary, and we adapted to that new invention, and our whole lives changed because of it. I mean, like, it's not like we all decided one day we're like, okay, we're done living with caves. We're gonna go ahead and we're gonna start building houses. Like it wasn't like suddenly one day we're just gonna do that. No, it was like there was an actual reason. It was okay. Well, we can no longer be hunter gatherers. We have a large we need to work together as a collective, which means we need to farm, which means we need to domesticate animals. How do we do that? How do we prevent them from running away? Well, you build structures to hold them in. Well, if you're going to have a structure to hold it in, how are you going to reinforce it from people who might want to take something? Well, you probably build some sort of dwelling so that way you can be there to watch it, so that way no one messes with it. Like these things. I mean, I'm not saying that's exactly how it all happened, but I'm saying that like something along those lines probably did occur, and it was like a slow, like one thing after another thing after another thing after another thing. Like take like like the cell phone, right? We go from having a phone, right, tethered to a cord, and now we have the cell phone. And then now that we have the cell phone, we're like, you know what? We want to get a camera. We're gonna have a camera on these things so we can take pictures, right? So now we have pictures on these phones, right? And then some bright idea came along, Apple and their geniusness, and they're like, hey, let's go on the internet on these phones. And then wouldn't it be nice if we could listen to music too? Wouldn't it be nice also if you had like a bunch of applications so that way you could do kind of things similar to a computer but you're on your phone? And it's like a slow progression. Like technology. So I think technology kind of operates along those kinds of ways. You start off with a need, and then you refine that need to make it more efficient and to better serve your uses, your needs, your wants, and it just gets better and better and better. I think that likely could also be going on when it comes to certain aspects of technology, perhaps created by another intelligence, not from here. And I mean, the evolutionary pressures that would facilitate needs could be wildly different. Like, so that's why I say that. Like, I'm like, I agree if we're gonna like look at the long odds of things. If aliens do exist and they did travel here, they're probably way more advanced than we are. But just because they probably are doesn't mean they definitely are. If that makes any sense.
Yeah, but the thing is like what seems like what would be necessary for intergalactic travel seems like stuff like that's already beyond what we've got.
You'd think so, but I mean, okay, like what do you think? Let's first of all let's break it down, right? What exactly, okay, do you need to travel intergalactically other than speed? So let's take speed off the table as something that we need, all right? Because I think being able to traverse vast distances is an understandable like agreement, and that's really the fundamental thing I think with most of the most UFO stuff is it has to do with how fast they move. They take really extreme right turns, and they go for in the blink of an eye from like a certain elevation all the way to almost to the ground, and like they're super fast. So let's give you fast. Let's say like their tech is gravity manipulation, and they just that's how they're doing it. Let's assume. Let's make that assumption. It's a big assumption, but let's make that assumption. What else do you think that is required to traverse the universe that you think we don't have?
That we don't have?
Sure. I mean, or it seems like something that we would need to somehow like invent.
It just seems like improving, the mechanics, and then of course there's also the food and water mechanic great or machinery, and then any sort of weapon to handle like debris that you would find out there.
Mm-hmm.
And then good filtration system. So it's like mostly a very like large scale improvement over anything we might currently have, to be honest.
Yeah, I agree with some of those things. Like, I think like when it comes to food, like I think we're making some pretty big progress in how to grow food in space.
Okay.
And so I think that like that's something that it is an issue today, but I think it's a solvable issue within probably the next 10 to 20 years.
I mean, I didn't say it was unsolvable. I just said
Oh
it's
yeah,
so
yeah, yeah,
hard.
yeah, yeah. I know that, but I'm just saying, like, I'm thinking, like, what is that? What kind of technology do you think that they have that's out of reach in the next, let's say, 20 years?
20 years?
Other than speed.
Hmm. I mean, that's a little hard to say considering how fast, depending on how much we actually want to improve a thing.
Yeah, I'm aware of that. Like that's yeah,
So it's just like depending on how determined the freaking scientists are.
yeah. Let's assume World War III doesn't happen. We don't all go back to the Stone Ages. Einstein's prediction is doesn't happen.
Mm, let's see. Obviously, the food and water, like I mentioned before, anything that makes it, well, whatever they need to breathe, because they don't, not necessarily a thing there, they might need oxygen.
That's fair.
Certain machinery to help take care of like space repairs, because oh boy, that thing's gonna get broken depending.
Hmm.
Decent weaponry, especially if they're gonna go really quickly.
Why would
It's
you
not
need
like you can
weapons?
just, hmm? I don't know, debris. Like I mentioned, shooting debris before.
So you're thinking and you're gonna go into space and it's gonna be like a game of asteroids. You need
I
to.
mean, that's an option because it's like if they don't maneuver around it, they
Mhm.
have to find some way to get rid of it. And whether that be like through a weapon or through like a shield that just like pushes through it, or they get really good at making like 90-degree angle. The kings of drifting in the middle
Oh
of
my
space.
god.
New sport, drifting in space.
Damn, that's crazy. Uh, okay. Like,
Because it's like there's obviously, you have to be able to have good tech for the ship and however long it travels, and considering light year is like forever and a half. So it's just like you got to be able to get all the machinery to like, keep a crew for one,
hmm.
and then deal with all the repairs because oh yeah, there's just, a repair shop, 2 planets of
I'll put it this way.
repair shop.
I'll put it this way. Like, I don't think, like, I feel like if you can manipulate gravity, then, like, distance doesn't really matter. Like, like food, water, like, all of those things. Like, they matter, but they don't matter nearly as much as you might imagine. Like, I mean, like, without getting too like weird about it, right? Like there's no tech if you can manipulate gravity to be able to fold space, then there's no particular reason for why you couldn't just do that to instantly go to any point you wanted. Right? Like
Oh, you're thinking that their gravity manipulation means instant teleportation type of scenario?
I wouldn't say instant teleportation, but what I would say is that they could literally like shrink space in front of them and expand space behind them, similarly to the Alcubierre drive. Like
What?
in the theory of what's his name, Alcubierre, who
Never
basically
heard him.
we talked about him before. He basically wrote out the equation that would describe how a warp bubble would get created in real with real mathematical terms and things like that. And the first calculation was like all the energy in the universe, and then like the second one was like the energy of a energy converted, like if you were to take the mass of like a planet like Jupiter and convert it into pure energy, that's how much energy it would be required to do it. And it's starting to like the easiest way to can describe this is that apparently it's like if you had the ability to harness a singularity, then you could pull it off, which is extremely out there, but it is technically on the scale of, you know, if like, you know, you were to consider civilizations, like there's these type civilizations, like, so like a type 1 civilization controls all the energy of the planet that they're on. They control the weather, they have everything, right? Mm-hmm. And then like type 2 is like one that controls all the energy that their solar system produces. So like they capture all the energy from the sun, like all the planets' energies in the system. And then like a type 3 is like a civilization that controls all the energy of a galaxy. And so like we're like a type 0.7, 0.8 or something like that, right? On that scale. And it kind of is interesting because theoretically, you know, like if we ever got to that point, we could harness that. So that's what I'm saying, like taking the speed thing off the table. That's why I said it that way, but it's okay. Let's change pace real quick to like a little bit more back to the UFO discussion itself, right? Okay. So the question that I really want to pose, and I'm going to ask this a few times, so I hope that like you guys just bear with me on this.
I'm going to assume I can remember the question.
Yes, the question is that do you think that UFOs started coming to the Earth because they were able to detect the atomic explosions towards the end of the World War II, you know, and like maybe some of the testing that occurred prior to the use of them on Nagasaki and Hiroshima? Mm-hmm. And that's the question I kind of like I'm trying to pose, I guess. I mean, if you think about the number of instances of UFOs that have happened around military installations, it's just mind-boggling, you know, the number of them.
It's quite a lot.
And many of them go unreported. We had a particular article, if I remember correctly, we can pull it up, from 1967. Popular Mechanic can put down a small little like excerpt that basically there's a picture of it too, which is kind of crazy. This just might be kind of cool to see, of a disc that appeared over a military installation, and according to Popular Mechanic, the general gist of it was that this UFO came over to the base and turned off and like disarmed all of the nuclear missiles on the site. It was absolutely ridiculous. And we're not going to read the whole thing. We can kind of scroll through it. If you guys want to like pause it and kind of read through it, you can. It's a really short little like excerpt thing. Nothing particularly, crazy. But the fact that like they were able to just deactivate ICBMs, that's a big deal. Because what happens if we were like under a threat, right? What happens if we had to, defend ourselves against some aliens and they had the ability just to turn off our most powerful weapon?
We're screwed.
Yeah, we're totally screwed. And so, like,
it's like, we can no longer defend ourselves. Hello, Overlord. Please do not kill me.
Oh my god! Really, your first instinct is, "Hello, Overlord. Please don't kill me. Let me serve you."
Survival instinct, okay?
Survival instinct. Okay, I'll keep that in mind.
It's like if they can shut off what you consider one of our most powerful weapons, what the heck am I gonna do against them? Bite their ankles?
Yeah.
Yes, I'm gonna gnaw on you like a little chihuahua dog.
Yeah, that's fair. I mean, and here's the other thing too. I guess I can point out to this. So you know how like we were discussing before about how like I was arguing the fact that there's a possibility that they are not as advanced as we give them credit for.
Okay.
This is directly counter to that. It's more it more supports your particular train of thought, which is fair. And I always, I mean, some people will accuse me of being a contrarian. I'll accept that if that's what people want to say. My truth is that
looking at multiple perspectives.
Yeah, I want to give every side a voice,
you know.
Right? And the side that most people don't want to talk about is often the contrarian viewpoint, which is why I often talk about it. But like, it's just I want to make sure everyone gets an equal opportunity to be heard.
Yeah. It's just like, who knows? Thinking contrarian can lead to some. It's just like, hey, we didn't think about that. Ah, crap.
Oh my god, host. Come on,
What?
host. What the hell?
What?
Space Spider-Man
Oh
swinging
yeah,
from
he said
asteroid
that a
to...
while ago.
Damn. Wow.
Spider-Man, Spider-Man.
Damn, that's crazy. So obviously, we know about the Roswell incident, right? That happened,
Yeah.
basically 2 years after World War II, roughly speaking. Okay.
Yeah, quite a
And
number of articles about it.
yeah, and Roswell for years, okay, like was just like this tinfoil hat conspiracy theory kind of like stuff. And to be completely fair, like that is 100% makes sense. That is exactly how most of these things usually look. And the fact that like the United States government basically came out and reported, hey, yeah, we have a UFO, and then they recanted the entire story. Like that actually kind of like is worthy of a conspiracy because it's like, hey, we're hiding information from you. And host, by the way, stop doing the Spider-Man thing. Oh my god, no more Space Spider-Man. No more of that. Anywho.
Did you read the comment again?
No, I didn't read the comment again. I'm just saying, like, it popped in my head, and I was like, God damn it, why? Like, it's just like, why?
Yeah, it said it was a crashed conventional weather balloon. I
Yeah.
think we know what a balloon looks like.
Yeah, and, look, here's the thing, right? So, like,
Mm-hmm.
I think it was 1993, the Clinton administration basically, like, released a little bit of information. Then by 97, they had released the whole Project Mogul explanation for Roswell, right? And I remember thinking that makes a lot of sense. And the reason why it made a lot of sense to me was because I watched the History Channel as a kid, and I was very impressionable. Okay. And second of
Aren't we
all,
all?
yes. And second of all, like it lined up. I mean, like they said there were bodies in Roswell, right? And that they were wearing like some sort of jumper suit, right? And
Yeah.
in Project Mogul, like there were test dummies that wore suits that they sent up that looked just like that. And so like there like it all lined up. It made sense to me. But I thought about the whole thing again. And the thing that stood out to me the most, the part that was really inexplicable, had to do with some material that had been recovered that didn't look like anything you could find on Project Mogul. Now, there's a whole bunch of pictures of like them holding up space debris, okay, like these or like debris of the flying saucer, and you see all these pictures with them like holding up what looks like tinfoil, right?
Like this thing?
Yeah, and to be fair, it might be tinfoil. It very much could be potentially. I mean, those definitely look like something that could be construed as a weather balloon, right?
Mm-hmm.
And in fact, I would agree that that's probably exactly what it is. But there is a part that they don't tell. They tell, but they didn't show. And that was they had a bunch of material that they could grab up and roll up into a ball, okay? And then it would spring back into shape. And the
Just
thing,
boing.
yeah, and the thing that like is weird about that, right, is like, what material in 1947, what material today, like works that way, right? And the thing is that like normally when people tell bullshit stories and there's like hundreds of people involved, there's always at least one person who on their deathbed gives a confession of, oh, it was bullshit, we all made it up. That didn't happen. That hasn't happened. And that in and of itself is kind of like, okay, well, that's really strange, right? And the other thing is that the U.S. military made a lot of weird moves with like stuff that you wouldn't normally expect them to do. They mobilized a lot of assets, militarily speaking, when there should have been no reason to, if it was really just Project Mogul. I mean, like, look at how they delivered this stuff. It was like, in a trailer. It was inflated from the trailer. It would expand up. They'd have like, a team of people, maybe, 12, 15 people tops. And they would have, like people who were gathering, a lot of the data. And it's just like, to me, it doesn't require a large number of people to get this thing going, right? Why do they mobilize hundreds of people? if it was for this project. It didn't make, it made a lot of sense to me when I was impressionable, but the more I look at it, I go, I think there's something else going on. I don't know. I'm not saying 100% that Roswell was aliens, but what I'd say is that there's more to that story than what was told to us, and it's very weird. But also, I would say this too, right? Like, why there's a timeline for like activity that happens, and we see basically right after those atomic bombs were used and nuclear testing starts going, literally skyrockets, like UFO accounts, and we get more and more and more and more and more and more to the point where we now have like the Tic Tac UFO, that happened in the Nimitz incident in 2004. There was another crazy incident that happened. Although that's freaking hilarious. The Tic Tac thing right there. Yeah, that's exactly what I think of when I think of Tic Tac UFO.
Absolutely. It's not this thing. No. It's a legitimate Tic Tac.
It's that right there. That's totally what it is.
Legit Tic Tac.
But
small, tiny. Oh my God! Somebody photoshopped
it. Oh my God. So. When it comes down to the way in which some of the footage has been captured, it makes me question a lot of things. And the fact that the U.S. military has reopened this up, has publicly announced that yes, there are unidentified aerial phenomena, UAPs, and they're no longer saying they're UFOs. They're talking about it being something else. And then you get this, which we reported on something similar to this a while ago. But really, it's a triangle-shaped object that's maneuvering around in the air, right?
Yeah.
How many things can move that are triangle-shaped like that? There's the crystal, like, triangle-looking shape that's like the stealth aircraft from the first generation. I think it's like the F... Yeah, that right there. Top left. That right there is like, I would say E117 is like definitely responsible for a lot of reports of UFOs, because it's a weird triangle shape in the sky. I am positive that there were reports. I even think that there's a chance that if you saw like a B-21 stealth bomber, you 100%. The B-2, it looks like a spaceship. It looks like an alien spaceship if you didn't know better. All right? Yeah. And I think that, I can understand how if you saw that, you might think, okay, maybe there's aliens. Okay? But there's an account that happened, and that's pretty famous. It's the Arizona Lights. Happened in 1997. And, it was miles long. All right? This wasn't like a little tiny thing, all right? This was an enormous craft that moved over the sky, right? The question I have really for everybody is just that, if this is bullshit, right? Mm-hmm. Then there was 30,000 people who all saw this thing, right? Yeah. That was, this is ridiculous.
They covered about 300 miles.
Yeah, it's enormous, all right? And the fact that it was seen, but no disturbance in the atmosphere, nothing going on. How the hell does that happen? If it's a mass hallucination, then yeah, I guess that's how it happens, right? But but to have that many reports, that many people seeing the same thing, I have an incredibly hard time believing that. And these are people who have things that can, they have something at risk here, you don't want a bunch of people thinking you're crazy. So, I don't know. To me, when you think about these kinds of things, when you see what happens, it's really hard to explain. Some people I remember, one of the theories that I saw was for, the Phoenix Lights was that it was like a fireworks display, or they were like flares, right?
Yeah.
But they didn't descend. They traveled across. And people who were underneath it said that there was a shape to it, a V shape to it, like a big giant V wing. And if you look at it kind of closely, you can kind of make it out, it's not like it's really hard to see that just in the orientation of just the lights themselves. So I tend to believe that the accounts are legitimate, that there really was something to it. And I have to say, I mean, like, Arizona is pretty darn close to where there are a lot of testing done. That whole portion of the country is a place where there was a lot of nuclear tests done. And so it would not surprise me at all if, they were basically going down from, like, between Nevada, Arizona, Utah, New Mexico, that whole area, that whole region, is just chock full of, like, different, major test areas. And if someone was going to come check on us to see what we're doing, there's a thing. Now, I'm going to leave you with one last little bit of information that I think is worth considering.
Okay.
So, I recently watched a podcast where Dr. Michikaku, who, is a physicist, he's pretty well known, was discussing what happens to space when it's superheated, right? When empty space gets superheated, it actually can it's believed that it might open up very microscopic, wormholes to other universes, or it might even be responsible in creating new universes. Is it possible that when we use a high energy explosion like a nuclear weapon, that it is punching a hole or heating up space in some way that maybe some sort of, new universe is created, or maybe an access to another universe is somehow happening at a very, very, microscopic level, and this could potentially be a threat to the universe? And that's why they're interested in coming here, is so that way we don't, end up destroying or unleashing something into our universe. I mean, one of the things that's interesting is the fact that, it's speculated that there's probably many universes, right? There's the many universe theory, the multiverse theory.
The multiverse.
But many of the universes that are thought to maybe exist, the physics that is involved in that universe isn't quite stable. Maybe so you can only have a limited number of protons and electrons, and so mass and matter can't really form the way it does here, and so it collapses in and on itself pretty quickly, right?
Yeah.
And what happens if you open up a universe where that universe is just like a viscous ooze that just consumes and replicates more of itself, and you open up a hole in there and it seeps into our universe? What prevents it from gobbling up the entire universe?
I could have sworn there was a prompt about that, and that sounds like an anime prompt. No, I know there's an anime about it. I just don't remember what it is. Crap.
That's funny.
It was either an anime prompt or a story prompt. It was some type of prompt that I remember reading about.
Oh, wow.
Or was it? Or no, it was a riddle. It was a riddle about it.
Yeah. Well, my whole thought process when it comes down to this has to do with the fact that there are usually unintended consequences whenever we do anything. Mm-hmm. And those unintended consequences might be the reason for why we're drawing attention to us. And so, once again, I'm going to ask that question. Do you think that our use of atomic and nuclear weapons is responsible for getting the attention of other life forms that have the means to travel to us and signify that perhaps we're a threat? Perhaps we need to be protected. Perhaps we need to be stopped. Let me know what you guys think in the comments. You can email the show at awickedparley@gmail.com. And think about this. I'd like to hear it, your thoughts on it. And do you have anything else for us, Rose? Any final thoughts?
No panic, no panic, no panic, no panic.
No panic, no panic.
No panic, no panic, no panic.
All right, so don't panic. And keep an eye on the stars. You never know what you might see. We'll see you all.
Also, they're pretty.
They are pretty. We'll see you all in the next one, everybody. Good night, everybody.